What is up, viewers and viewers? My name is Kiss, and welcome back to KTV Network. Today I am reacting to Resident Evil 5, the game that needs a remake. And I see a lot of people are saying that this game can't be remade because all of the infected were in Africa, and that would be racist. But I think the pendulum is swinging, and that these people, these mentally unwell people, that don't know how to separate and don't know how to what is that word? Differentiate reality from fiction. Or maybe what is that word I'm looking for? Decipher? I know not decipher. Differentiate. I'm going to use the word for now. Yes. So, what are we really talking about here? Like, racist for what? But yeah, I can see how that could become a problem 5 years ago, when the pendulum wasn't swinging back to some kind of normalcy. So, let's pause this and see what Jebediah Smith has to say.
So IGN, a very reputable video game reviewer, made a video around a year ago about the possibility and the controversy of a Resident Evil 5 remake being made.
Oh, they're the ones that started this? Oh,
it means a lot.
Got them.
I grew up playing Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube, and
got the wokeness, not them. No, what? I'm not calling for violence.
having to swap back to Luigi's Mansion because I was too scared of the fucking Verduga part. And even that at times, fucking Luigi's Mansion was still a little scary. And even to this day, I'm still playing Resident Evil 4 via the phenomenal remake, which I'm currently still trying to platinum. So me being the Resident Evil enjoyer I am, I clicked on the video and expected a valid criticism of Resident Evil 5, which I've seen plenty of times. In the first few minutes will have you believe that. However, by the end, I was met with something completely.
A lot of people are saying Resident Evil 5 came across as a PvP game, which isn't bad. It was fun for what it was. It came across as a wave type of game, wave of enemies type of game to move forward.
Completely different, and honestly, after watching it, I knew immediately I needed to make a response and just break down this video. So for some context, Resident Evil 5, when it was released, it was kind of left in the shadow of its predecessor. The franchise was starting to turn into fucking Fast and Furious, where every new installment was full of unrealistic action, incoherent storytelling, cameos from
And that became canon, boulder punching Chris.
fan favorite characters that haven't received a coherent arc in ages.
Chris?
And Resident Evil 5 was no exception. Resident Evil 4 had action, while retaining the classic horror elements that the franchise was known for, while Resident Evil 5 heavily focused on action, while having the horror almost as like a backdrop. And it wouldn't be until Resident Evil 7, which wiped the slate clean and basically revived the horror element of the franchise. However, the video just simply doesn't cover any of these very common and valid criticisms of story, gameplay, and horror, and instead just makes blank statements about the game and somehow gets political. So let me just play you the first few points made by our friend over at IGN.
Resident Evil is a survival horror series. Not that you'd know that playing Resident Evil 5. Sure, it features a constant flow of horrific imagery, but Resident Evil 5 is an action game through and through. That's evident in its cover shooter mechanics, vehicle chases with on-rails turret sequences, and the constant rattle of assault rifles.
Oh, that's your argument, that you wouldn't know it's a survival horror game because it has action and it has cover shooting mechanics.
Like, if they were to do a remake, they have to add some... I don't know, they just have to make the game a lot darker, I guess, and grittier, and kind of have a sequence where they lose their ammo, and if you want to make it survival horror-ish, right? Kind of something like that. Mix it up a little bit.
On-rails turn sequences and the rattle of assault rifles, whatever that even means. Just because a game features these mechanics doesn't define its gameplay. These are just add-ons to the gameplay. And if that's your argument for not realizing it's a survival horror game, maybe game journalists are that dumb. I'm sorry, the video hasn't even started yet. I just got a little fumed. Let's continue the video.
Even its visual design evokes the sandy shades of modern military games that experienced mass popularity in the late 2000s. It all speaks to a series that had lost its way. Rather than reflect on the tenets that were the foundation of its experience,
I just find it very ironic how he says it speaks to a series that lost its way, and then proceeds to show a clip of a guy shooting an RPG at a helicopter. This has happened like multiple times in Resident Evil 4, like multiple times. I just found that funny. So he makes a point about the visual design invoking the sandy shades of modern military games. This guy talks like the fucking Riddler. And I guess his point there is that because the game is in like a sand desert environment and it kind of looks like a mission from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, that means it's completely lost all originality and it's just copying Call of Duty. Like, I know game journalists aren't that good at playing video games, but like, I didn't know they had like a tumor in their brain. Like, this guy really put a clip of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and said, "This is my evidence." Like, that really is proving something.
You would be truly humble under doubt.
Like, where is the same energy when you go to a fucking island fighting a militia in Resident Evil 4? Yet that game is renowned by you guys. I never hear you guys complain about that game. Alright, let's continue with the video.
The result is an unholy hybrid of Resident Evil, Gears of War, and Call of Duty. It's as ugly and unwieldy as it sounds.
So just to touch on this real quick, it's actually pretty funny he mentions Gears of War. Gears of War was actually inspired by the over-the-shoulder perspective that was made in Resident Evil 4. Yet this guy claims that Resident Evil 5 copied Gears of War in Call of Duty. And why do I mention Resident Evil 4? Well, Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5 not only share very similar gameplay, they also share the same engine. The only thing separating them is the graphics. Like IGN, I hate to break it to you, but Call of Duty nor Gears of War own on-rails turret shooting mechanics or cover mechanics. Like, this guy really does have a brain of a 2-year-old. He sees Call of Duty, ooh, those are guns. Then he sees Resident Evil 5, ooh, those are guns. Ooh, same game. If I keep yapping here, this video will be like 40 minutes long, so let's just continue with the video.
With Resident Evil,
Ooh, those are guns. Then he sees Resident Evil 5, ooh, those are guns. Ooh, same game. If I keep yapping here, this video will...
You know what's crazy? I heard a lot of controversy about this Dream guy, right? And he isn't unattractive at all. But a lot of people made him out to be, and I was wondering, like, why the backlash? And then I looked into something that was, I guess he was talking about what was attractive, and then, so when he exposed his face, a lot of people came for him. But that's, he seems like a regular looking dude. He's not ugly at all. He actually has,
40 minutes
he has very nice teeth.
long, so let's just continue with the video.
With Resident Evil 4, director Shinji Mikami deftly reinvented the series through the use of a new over-the-shoulder camera angle. The perspective allowed for a more kinetic, action-heavy game. Despite this, Mikami never lost sight of the terror at the core of Resident Evil. Through the use of enemies that were strategically placed to provide undulating waves of tension and fear, and the inclusion of Ashley as your vulnerable charge, combat encounters were focused on surviving overwhelming horrors rather than dominating foes. Resident Evil 5, meanwhile, presents its enemies as waves to be gunned down with increasingly powerful weaponry. Their purpose is cannon fodder, a wall of meat to slow your progress through levels.
Waves of enemies to be gunned down with increasingly powerful weaponry. Bro just described Resident Evil 4. And he's acting like every single chapter in Resident Evil 4 is where you have to hold off a certain point, like the first fight in the village.
Yeah, but
like,
that
did
was
he
done
not get
so
past
well.
that fight? Does he think every single scenario?
Oh yeah, I remember fighting waves and waves. In this scenario, when I needed to go somewhere, I just needed to hold. I think you need to survive long enough.
Oh, in the game
I thought I had to defeat everybody. No.
is like that. There's only around 3 to 4 points in Resident Evil 4 where you're holding off a point and protecting yourself from like an overwhelmingly crazy amount of people. And his other point,
But you're doing
about
that all
enemies
the time
strategically
with Resident
being
Evil 5.
placed in points to overwhelm you and instill fear. Yeah, 100%. Resident Evil 4 had that. But Resident Evil 5 also has that 100%. I haven't played the game in a while, obviously I need to replay it. It's probably been about a year or two now, but I do remember there being some intense moments. Anyway, let's continue the video.
and those levels are not locations to be explored. Instead, they are largely funnels that push you from entrance to exit. Resident Evil 4 may have replaced the series' traditional continuous structure with discrete levels in an attempt to move away from the backtracking-heavy design of previous games, but it preserved the spirit of locations like the Raccoon City police station. The village, Salazar's castle, and the island feature interlocking, explorable pathways that solidify these locations as authentic spaces rather than obstacle courses. Resident Evil 5 has no interest in this, with the majority of its stages being little more than corridors peppered with dead ends to hide treasures in. Their lack of authenticity means no one will ever mention the Kijuju Autonomous Zone in the same breath as the Spencer Mansion.
Okay, so I really don't want to take too long on this because it's just complete and utter bullshit he's spitting out.
He's lying. He's lying!
Resident Evil 5 is not just corridors. There are multiple chapters where you are holding off enemies in certain locations, fighting bosses, doing a whole bunch of different shit. I truly think his gripe with the game is that you can't really backtrack, similar to Resident Evil 4, and rather the chapters are split up into levels, so there's multiple levels in a chapter, and each level is a certain part of the map.
All this is to say that a faithful remake of Resident Evil 5 would break Capcom's 7-year streak of brilliant survival horror games.
It's really unfortunate, man. I was really hoping we would get a Resident Evil 5 remake, but because of the corridors, I've really just rethought my wishes for a remake.
There he is. Come on. Damn it. What now? I just hear him talking.
It's telling that the series' reset point, Resident Evil 7, was a reinvention of the very first game, a haunted house that grew ever larger as you unlocked new rooms by solving its puzzles. Clever reinventions of this base conceit is the key to Resident Evil's success, be that dropping an unstoppable force into the house's corridors, such as Resident Evil 2's Mr. X, or expanding the scope of the house. Resident Evil Village's titular location is effectively a giant manor. Its corridors are streets, and its rooms are houses. Resident Evil 5's stage-driven structure is simply inferior to this design. A modern recreation of it would only further highlight its flaws.
But what flaws? A remake is not only made to make fucking money, but it's not only made to bring a game to a new audience, but it's also to improve the base game and make it better. Look at the Resident Evil 4 remake. It took out a lot of shit and also improved a lot of shit that we never even thought of. Before the Resident Evil 4 remake came out, Resident Evil 4 to me was an S-tier perfect game. I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Yeah.
But when the remake came around, I would definitely find myself missing some features while
Like Ada's voice, which they have a voice mod in Pro Montreal, by the way.
I was playing the original game. So, Mr. IGN guy, if we lived in a world where
I
you were right
can't.
and Resident Evil 5
I can't with that
wasn't
voice. I have to
good,
mention
then
it
why
every time.
wouldn't you want a remake? A remake would only make the game better.
Remakes can, of course, completely redefine the structure of their source material.
You're getting there, IGN, almost.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, for example, is recognisably an updated version of the classic RPG, but its world design and gameplay mechanics are a world apart from the 1997 original, and so you could argue that Resident Evil 5 is actually the Resident Evil most in need of a remake. A whole new environmental structure and scenario design that reins in the action and dials up the horror would bring it in line with Capcom's other remakes.
Oh shit. IGN, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you guys, honestly. You guys got it completely right.
But all of this doesn't account for Resident Evil 5's most notorious problem: racism.
Huh? Okay, so this is
We
when the
knew
video
that
starts
was
to
coming.
deviate, or actually rather completely deviates from the gameplay and the story and the horror and basically everything that Resident Evil is, and starts
Here we go.
becoming very political and almost just nonsensical. So let me just give you a warning now. I am not a political content creator. I don't want to give my stance on politics on my platform. This is not what I want to share, nor do I want to share it. And if you watch enough of my content, you'll probably get an understanding of where I lean. However, I don't even really think you need a side to understand how stupid this guy's argument is. I'm still obviously going to play the video, but
Racism.
basically...
A game set in Africa where the T-virus breaks out. What's the T-virus going to target? South Africans? Where they at? The South Africans are running now. They don't want them there, apparently.
his sense of it is the game is inherently racist because the main characters go around shooting black people when one of the main protagonists is an African American herself. She's a native there. Anyway, I'll just play this slop take.
Set in a fictional West African country, Resident Evil 5's primary antagonists are black people.
Ridiculous.
No, they are not. Maybe they are to you, but in the game they are infected by a virus. Very similar to the Las Plagas. As a matter of fact, it is actually the same as Las Plagas in the lore.
The antagonist is Wesker, and by proxy, Jill, and Estella. Like, what are we talking about?
I think it's like mutated or something, I can't really quite remember. But in Resident Evil 4, they're infected. The villagers. The Spaniard villagers are all infected. Did Leon
Right,
Kennedy
is that
now
racism
commit mass
too?
genocide against Latinos?
Exactly.
No, but seriously, these people are all infected. They have no say, no choice in this at all. There's even a quote in the game, it's from the clip you literally pull up, where Shiva's sad and she's like, how could someone do this to them? How could someone infect these people?
How could someone do this to them?
Yes, it's technically the Ouroboros virus that protagonist Chris Redfield is fighting. But the parasite's host is depicted as a nation of mobs and primitives who are violent even before their infection.
Where's this slap
The
take with
world
Resident Evil
isn't
4?
all sunshines and rainbows, especially when you're a foreigner in a country that is known for violence. And on top of that, poverty.
True, it is third world.
Oh, and not to mention they're all infected by a virus that makes them very, very violent, and once
So it makes them even more violent.
they eat you. And like, dude, they have a culture to themselves. Like, there's still tribes out there. They still dress a certain way and act a certain way, and they still have all their customs. Not displaying that in a video game is inherently racist because you're painting a different picture than what actually is reality.
Intentionally or not, Resident Evil 5 positions Africa as the Dark Continent, an uncivilized world harboring a diseased population that needs gunning down via Western intervention in the name of global security. This insensitive treatment of people of color was hotly debated even as early as Resident Evil 5's debut trailer.
I really just don't remember this being a highly debated thing ever. As a matter of fact, I've never heard this argument ever. I had no idea that Asmongold even made a video until I started researching for this video. People that just play video games to have fun and have an escape don't look into these little minute details and just think everything is inherently racist and, oh, I have to be the white savior and point this out. I can promise you, no person of color is going to find this racist. Just like in Resident Evil 4, where no Hispanics found that game racist whatsoever.
With writers such as Ngai Kroll and Stephen Totillo pointing out the game's uncomfortable post-colonial imagery. The arguments and think pieces continued well into the game's release window, with IGN's own former editor-in-chief Hilary Goldstein having also wrestled with the subject. But that was 2000.
Stop. Stop. Wow.
2009, a time when race was apparently a debate rather than a reality. In the 2020s, in a post-Black Lives Matter world,
Now, at this point, I just have to point this out about the post-Black Lives Matter world. Like, what? Was your opinion before when Black Lives Matter happened, before BLM, you didn't think race should have been talked about? He's speaking about it like it was a historical event. Like, oh, race wasn't talked about it before this day happened of BLM, and then we started talking about it. Like, this isn't like Voldemort or something.
I'm
there is
so
only
tired
one
of race
acceptable
being a
response to a
political
white man
talking
shooting
point.
waves of Africans for an entire video game.
Especially in a game
No.
that's supposed to be about fantasy.
This guy stinks!
So that's basically the end of the video. The final
Basically.
like 2 minutes is basically him yapping about what Capcom should do. And his theory, they should just remake Code Veronica, which I completely agree with that, by the way. They should 100%
That's one good point.
remake the game. But his stance is they should just remake that game instead of going the Resident Evil 5 route. But then he mentions the post-credit scene and the separate ways shit.
And I would also say that they're remaking Resident Evil 5 at a good time. Now that the pendulum is swinging back to some normalcy and common sense, people are not going to scream, oh, racism, because the game originated in Africa and it's depicting people in a certain light. Shut up.
Where it's confirmed basically we're going to get a Resident Evil 5 remake as it shows Albert Wesker's computer screen and it shows
I'm Latino. You don't see me screaming about Resident Evil 4 and the Spaniards getting shot. Like,
some lore from Resident Evil 5. Basically confirming Capcom is somehow going to cover that story in the next game. Anyway, my stance will always be Resident Evil 5 should be remade, just like they
Yes.
did with Resident Evil 4, where they
Yes.
basically keep the same story, but they just improve the gameplay.
Add some
take out
horror
dumb
elements.
stuff
Add
like,
a
you know,
little
fucking
horror
Chris punching a
elements.
boulder. You know, maybe leave some Easter egg
No,
joke.
no. That's the one thing you keep, because they already canon. It's already canon with Resident Evil Village. He said that boulder punching asshole. They already said it. Keep it. Just, I guess, make it a bit more somehow. I don't know if you want to make it realistic or somehow, or just keep it as a fantasy thing in the game. Just keep it. It's a landmark now.
Because like a reference to that. Just make something for the fans, especially for people that love Resident Evil 5. It holds a very special place in my heart. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please subscribe. It only takes...
Well, that was that. Let me know what you think about this video down in the comments below. Let me know what other gaming media or media related content you'd like me to react to, expanding my horizons. Like and subscribe if you vibe, become a beauty today, and I will see you guys on the live streams pretty soon. So look out for that. But until then, take care of yourselves and thanks for stopping by.